Good evening. Let me know if you can hear me in the chat box. Do let me know if the audio is coming through. We don't want an issue like we had the other day when I was talking to myself for about 30 minutes. So yeah, let me know if you can hear me in the chat box. Can you hear me? Lenny, can you hear the audio? That's the question. Is the mic working? Excellent. Thank you, Penny. Many thanks. Just going to try and put a little bit of background music on just to see if this works. Right. Leslie North, many thanks for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you very much. Hello to Nicola. Hello to Vanessa. Shay, Zoe, Cosmic, Kitten, Essex True Crime, The Legend, Sit and Spin. Welcome to you. Unlimited FN. Terry, The Legend Stamper. Lenny Russell, as always, thank you. Fred, welcome to you. Same format as usual. I'm not entirely sure that we're going to get through all of the information this evening. This may end up being a two-part stream for the simple fact that there's so much information to get through regarding the case of Child E. I've got the unreleased police interviews, the transcript of those, and also the evidence given in court by both parents of Child E as well, which is like 148 pages worth. But as per usual, we'll start off the video from the prosecution explaining the case or the background from the prosecution's perspective. And then from there, I'll take you through the 48 pages of Lucy Letby's interviews pertaining to Child E. We'll give it a few minutes for the people to file in through the old turnstiles. Jay, welcome to you. Hartman, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us this evening. As I say, it depends how we go, really. If it goes fairly smoothly, then I may well jump into the evidence regarding the parents of Child E. It's just such a big document, as I say, 148 pages worth. So, Jay, morning from Oz. Morning from Oz. Welcome to you, Jay. Thanks for joining us. Vanessa, yes. If you could show some support to those videos that I've uploaded, it's taken me literally 15 hours to add the chapters to the episodes. I've had a lot of people discussing audios. Is there a problem with the audio? The audio is sketchy. Right, hang on a second. Hang on, guys. Hold the line. Right, let's try it without the background music on. Is the audio okay now? Or is it still a bit dodgy? Is it okay now? How's the audio now? I'll keep talking. Just let me know how the audio is. Much better? Yeah, it's because I had that background music playing in the background. That's probably what's done it. It's okay now, yeah? Excellent. Yeah, so as I say, those two episodes I uploaded earlier, so many people have asked me, can you put the cross-examination into one video? The answer to that is no, because YouTube has a limit of 12 hours. That comes to around 15 hours, I believe. So what I've done is I've uploaded it in two parts, but I've gone to the extent of adding chapters to each part so you can find each case individually, interesting points that are discussed. And as I say, that's literally taken me 15 hours. So yeah, it's been a bit of a slog. I only finished it at 5 o'clock, so hopefully it's all better now, the audio. Let's just say hello to a few more people. Eva, welcome to you. Paul, thanks for joining us. And in a couple of minutes' time, we'll start with the video. As I say, I've got a short video, or not really a short video. It's around 20 or 30 minutes long, but it gives you the basis of the prosecution's case against Child E or regarding Child E. And then we'll go through, as I say, the unreleased police interviews. Thank you, Lucy. Much appreciated. I'm glad the audio's sorted. I was hoping we could have a little bit of background music just to, cut out the sort of the silence parts. But obviously, if it's going to mess up the audio, then yeah, it's kind of counterproductive. Right then, so let's jump into the video. As I say, this is from the prosecution's perspective. Do keep that in mind as we go forward. And this is the prosecution's case against Child E. Once this is finished, we'll then jump in to the police interviews. So looking at Child E,
The twins were born on July 29th, 2015, which was Lucy Letby's day off. Between then and the events you've heard about, Lucy Letby had looked after child F several times. By the events that we are concerned with, both twins were doing well. You'll recall that the mother of child E and F was an inpatient at the hospital as well, and it seems like a long time ago now, but it was the 14th of November last year that the mother of child E and F gave evidence. She started with the events of July 30th, 2015, when she'd been able to visit her sons and have a cuddle with child F. The mother of child E and F, we suggest, was a very, very important witness in this trial. And she told you a number of very, very important things. What she said was that providing milk to her sons was top of her agenda. She felt it was the only thing she could do for her boys. She said that on the 3rd of August at 2100 hours, she went down to provide that milk. She said that when she entered nursery 1, child E was crying, and it was like nothing she had heard before. To quote her, she said, "It was horrendous, more of a scream than a cry." You will remember child I and child N, won't you, ladies and gentlemen? And that look of shock on Dr. Lochnane's face when she saw she had written screaming of child N on the 3rd of June 2016. The mother of child E and F said that there was blood around child E's mouth. You'll remember what I described more than once as a goatee beard type image on that picture. Lucy Letby told the mother of child E and F that the blood had come from the nasogastric tube and the registrar was on his way. On his way. Lucy Letby told the mother of child E and F to go back to the postnatal ward, and by 2111 hours the mother of child E and F was back on the postnatal ward. There's no room for misunderstandings here, is there, ladies and gentlemen? This is a head-on credibility contest between the mother of child E and F and Lucy Letby. That's why Lucy Letby's lies about something as trivial as her social life are so important. A full-on, head-on credibility contest. And you can be sure that Lucy Letby is lying about this incident, can't you? Because plainly as any parent will understand, the provision of milk, food to a newly born infant is important. And 2100 hours was child E's feeding time. If we just look at tile 121, please, of the child E sequence, you've got this in hard copy as well. Crying like nothing I'd heard before. It was a sound that shouldn't have come from a tiny baby. It was horrendous, more of a scream than a cry. You may think, ladies and gentlemen, and we invite you to conclude, that the mother of child E and F would have a very good reason to remember this. It was the night her son died. Either the mother of child E and F saw blood, or she didn't. She got it wrong. Why would she make it up? If the mother of child E and F saw blood at 9 p.m, then Lucy Letby's nursing notes are false. You've got them, ladies and gentlemen, in a hard copy behind divider 5 of jury bundle 2. Either Lucy Letby told the mother of child E and F that it was the nasogastric tube which had caused the blood, or she did not. Why would the mother of child E and F make that up? Dr. Bowen told us that the records show that the nasogastric tube that was in place on the 3rd of August was the same one that had been inserted on July 29th. So the same tube had been in for several days, and that was never disputed. Well, Lucy Letby would have known that at the time, wouldn't she? So why did she say that it was the nasogastric tube that had caused the bleed if it was the same one that had been in there for so long? The answer is it was a panicked reaction, told to a mother who knew no better, and it was designed to cover her tracks. When you're considering whether or not the mother of child E and F is accurate about that, ladies and gentlemen, bear this in mind. When Lucy Letby was struggling in interview to explain why it was that child N was bleeding, and we will come to this, there's a 1 mil bleed that she wrote on a chart that she never escalated to anybody. So she was being asked about that in interview for child N, and she came up with the same line under pressure from the police. Can I ask you to go to the child N interviews, please, It's in the jury bundle number 2, interviews bundle number 2, about halfway through. This is really important to the case of child E. It may seem like an absurd thing to say, but I'll explain why. So being asked about this 1 mil bleed, so a small bleed for child N, you can see a response by Lucy Letby. If the NG tube's been inserted forcefully, it can cause a bit of trauma going down. I wouldn't say it's common, but it can happen. She was then asked, but in your experience that has caused in the past bleeding, has it? And she replied, yeah, it can do, yeah. She was then asked, is that bad bleeding or just a small amount of blood? And she replied, no, just a small amount. She was then asked, right, okay, such as 1 mil? And she replied, yeah, I wouldn't expect any more than that. Now this is really important, ladies and gentlemen. It's important because remember what the mother of child E and F was actually describing. She was describing a small amount of blood around the mouth, wasn't she? Do you remember that? If the mother of child E and F, as Lucy Letby would have it, was really down there at 10 o'clock, child E was producing lots of blood by 10 o'clock. So under pressure from the police to produce an explanation for blood with another child, blood in a child with haemophilia, blood that hadn't been escalated to the medical staff, she came up with that as an explanation under pressure on the night of August 3rd, 2015. The pressure of a mother arriving with milk and a child with a small amount of blood around its mouth like child E had. She came up with the same explanation. That is why Lucy Letby falsified the nursing notes for child E. That's the evidence. We suggest that you can be sure, you can be absolutely sure that the mother of child E and F is telling the truth, because what she saw and heard caused her such concern that she rang her husband. The phone records prove that she made a call, don't they? They don't prove what's in the call, of course they don't, but they prove that she made the call. If I just remind you of tile 122, please. This is a call at 21:11, 4 minutes and 25 seconds. The mother of child E and F told you what she said to her husband. The father of child E and F told you what she said to him. Have the parents of child E and F made that up to get Lucy Letby? Because that's the choice. Are they in on it? Are they a sub-gang of 2? Or are they telling the truth? Is Lucy Letby telling the truth when she says that the mother of child E and F came down at 2200 hours? Well, the mother of child E and F told you that after the 2100 hours event, the next time she went down was when the doctors were working on child E, trying to save his life. Is she wrong about that? Of all the things in your life that you remember, ladies and gentlemen, I hope none of you have ever been in that position. But you might just remember, mightn't you, seeing your son in a terminal decline? And if the mother of child E and F is telling you the truth, then Lucy Letby's notes are a lie. Her account is a lie. And we suggest there can be only one sensible reason why she would falsify the nursing notes. It's not a case of a mistake creeping in, is it? Or to use her phrase, an error. This is a fundamental difference between the mother of child E and F's compelling account and the lying written record made by Lucy Letby. Do you remember being told that a message had come up from the labour ward and the mother of child E and F was so upset by what she heard that she asked a midwife to use her phone to phone the father of child E and F? You can see it's a long call, 14 minutes and 30 seconds. Just park that time in your head if you would, 22:52. And go to tile 128. Click on that please and scroll down. Just before 2300 hours, here is Dr. Harkness' note. He times it at 2300 hours. Obviously he's not using a stopwatch. This is the beginning of the final dramatic collapse of child E, and it coincides, doesn't it, with that telephone call made by the midwife to the father of child E and F. If we look at tile 153 please. The family communication note is what I'm interested in. If you read down about 5 lines, it says, both parents present during resus, fully updated. There is in there a reference to having contacted the midwife, called the midwife. So the bits of jigsaw all fit. As with all jigsaws, they only fit one way. And the image on the jigsaw corresponds to the account given to you by the mother of child E and F. And it completely undermines, we suggest, Lucy Letby's version of these events. So we suggest that Lucy Letby was interrupted by the mother of child E and F at 9 p.m. And she then worked on creating the impression that child E was ill, and she used her friend Belinda Williamson to make one of the notes in the chart to give the impression that this was all something that Belinda was involved in as well. And she called Dr. Harkness, and for a short time child E recovered. Then once Dr. Harkness had left, she attacked him again. And as child E entered his final collapse, somebody rang the postnatal ward to call the mother of child E and F. And so upset was the mother of child E and F by what she heard that she called her husband. If you agree and you're sure that's right, then it's clear evidence of falsification, isn't it, in those notes? And why would she, Lucy Letby, have done that if child E died from natural causes? It's powerful evidence, isn't it? Independent of the medical evidence. Powerful evidence that Lucy Letby murdered child E. When the mother of child E and F caught Lucy Letby red-handed, she didn't realise what was going on, of course, but her natural instincts told her that something was up. Dr. Harkness was the person who had to deal with the consequences of Lucy Letby's sabotage, and he gave evidence on November 17th. And he gave us, in effect, a chronological framework, didn't he, for what had happened. He told us about the handover and the time that takes, that he and Dr. Wood were covering the shift, and that they would have spoken to the nurses. And although his note is timed at 22:10, he accepted under cross-examination that he was probably on the neonatal unit from about 21:30. If you think that those times are important, we're not suggesting they are, we're not suggesting they aren't, but if you think that they are, you might want to look at tile 125 of the child E sequence. That's the fluid balance chart. If you look at the 2200 hours column, so it's in the bottom right-hand corner there, you'll see that Lucy Letby has written 15 ml fresh blood. I say she wrote it because Lucy Letby accepted in evidence that it's her writing. But we suggest that she had manipulated circumstances so that this was an entry that was signed by Belinda Simcock or Belinda Williamson, as she's now known. And the point of that, and this is where the other cases become relevant, isn't it? The point of doing that is to disassociate herself from this event if anyone ever goes back to look at the paperwork. So just as in other cases, either that she wrote data and didn't sign, or got someone else to write things in at a time she was doing things, and when on the 24th of May this year she was asked about that apparent anomaly, she said of that entry, 15 ml fresh blood, I assume it came after Belinda's documentation. That was the evidence she gave. So she got Belinda to sign an entry and then adds to it. You'll remember this in the context, won't you? Do you remember HS, the child in a different nursery, when child I collapsed for the final time on the 22nd, midnight on the 22nd and 23rd of October? HS, the child who was going to Stoke. After, in that case, Christopher Booth had signed the infusion, timed at 2300. She altered the time to 2400. This is where you put all the little bits, all the bits and pieces together, ladies and gentlemen. It's utterly obvious, isn't it, what's going on here? What Lucy Letby did here was sabotage child E after Belinda Williamson had written her entry. She puts it in under Belinda Williamson's initials so that it looks like Belinda Williamson is involved as well. So what could possibly be wrong about this? There's somebody else there when this happens, when you look at the notes. Although Dr. Harkness was persuaded in cross-examination that his note at 22:10 was really for events from about 21:30, you may think that that note there, timed at 2200, makes that concession dubious, to say the least. A reason why Lucy Letby needs Dr. Harkness to be there earlier is that she needs an innocent reason for omitting the feed at 2100. She needs to get the doctor in there earlier as a reason for omitting the feed at 2100, which in turn undermines the mother of child E and F's evidence. So if you're looking for why Lucy Letby is doing this, that is the reason. She was caught sabotaging child E by the mother, And this is what she does. This is what she did, we suggest, to cover herself. When he arrived at 22:10, Dr. Harkness was told by Lucy Letby that 30 minutes earlier there had been a dirty aspirate. If he was there at 22:30, then you can see why Lucy Letby is so keen to put the aspirate at 2100 hours, which is when the mother of child E and F is there. You can see how all the bits fit together, can't you? We then have the sudden large blood-stained vomit and a 14 ml aspirate, apparently. So not 15, a 14 ml aspirate, which had been taken at about 2200 hours. That's what caused Dr. Harkness to suspect that there was some sort of gastrointestinal bleed. But when he examined child E, all the signs were good. His bowels had been opening, his CRP was less than 1, his SATs were good, his other vital signs were good, and he was in air. And on examination, child E was pink and lively. You'll remember during cross-examination, it was suggested to Dr. Harkness that he was out of his depth. Do you remember that being put to him? Do you remember his reaction? He was insulted by that, Dr. Harkness. Dr. Harkness said that he was discussing things with Dr. C, the consultant who was on site. And when you're considering whether Dr. Harkness was really out of his depth, ladies and gentlemen, you might want to remember what Drs. Breary and J-Ram said about the level playing field. We don't factor in, they were saying, the possibility that a nurse is actually trying to sabotage children. None of these doctors suspected sabotage, did they? They were all looking for a natural cause for what was going on. There was no natural cause, because there was no level playing field. 2300 hours, Dr. Harkness was called back by Lucy Letby. Child E desaturated to 70%, and there was further blood coming up the nasogastric tube. Child E was breathing for himself and crying. He had to be given 100% oxygen. But as Dr. Harkness said, and I quote him here, something was interfering with the oxygen getting into his bloodstream. Dr. Kinsey's explanation for the mechanics of air embolus, the blockage caused by the bubble. Something was interfering with oxygen getting into his bloodstream. Dr. Harkness planned to intubate child E, and whilst that was being organised, there was a further sudden deterioration at 2340. And in between times, it was Lucy Letby who had been looking after child E. You will remember what Dr. Harkness described he saw, quote, a strange pattern over the tummy area, over the abdomen, which didn't fit with the poor perfusion. In between the chest, the upper legs, the rest was still pink, but there were these kind of strange purple patches that appeared over the outside of his tummy. Do you remember Dr. Harkness was moving his hand as he was describing that to you? He went on to say, there were patches in one area, then there were some in the other. Some of it was still nice and pink, but it was certainly unusual and not fitting with a baby that had completely shut down or poor perfusion. You will remember that he was saying in terms that this was not something he had ever seen outside the context of the babies in this case, and he was drawing a comparison with what he had seen with child A. He said what he had seen were patches that were no smaller than 1 to 2 centimetres. One of the strange or unusual things about what he saw was that it didn't remain constant. He was cross-examined, you'll remember, about differences in his description of what he had seen in child A's case and what he saw in child E's case. And he said this. It was something that was so unusual that it's hard to give a clear description. The point here, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a doctor saying, this is something I had not seen before. The precise way he described it isn't so important, is it? What he was saying was that he was seeing the same thing again. The same thing that he had seen with child A, he was seeing with child E. An interesting feature is that if you go to Lucy Letby's interviews, she describes what she saw in child A's case as very similar to that of child E's. You'll remember how traumatised Dr. Harkness was by what he had seen. You'll remember him describing the effect it had on him, how he had to have time off work. He had never seen a baby bleed the way child E did. On the other hand, if we go to tile 253, we can see how Lucy Letby felt about it. It's the same day that child E died. She said, quote, one of those things. Nothing to see here. That's the message, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing to see here. Remember me saying about her gaslighting her colleagues, persuading them that the wholly abnormal was in fact normal? Moving away from that text, please. It was suggested to Dr. Harkness that he'd been influenced by discussions he had had with others. He denied it. And even Lucy Letby doesn't put him in the gang of four. Was Dr. Harkness a liar? Do you remember the evidence of Dr. C, the consultant, who said that when she arrived at Child E's side at a later stage, Dr. Harkness had told her in quite a lot of detail about some very dark purple patches he had seen on the abdomen and the unusual appearance of these. She said that when he, Dr. Harkness, had spoken to her, he had told her in quite an animated fashion because it was quite an unusual appearance. So if Dr. Harkness is lying about this, Dr. C is supporting the lies, isn't she? What are the chances of that, ladies and gentlemen? How far does this supposed conspiracy go? Do you remember I said what Lucy Letby actually said is quite similar? If you go to Child E8, you will find Lucy Letby describing a patch of purpleness on Child E's abdomen. That was, quote, not something normal for a baby to have. That's what she said. You can check it. She said it was on his right-hand side by the belly button, and she went on 2 pages later to say that she asked for Dr. Harkness to review Child E again after the discoloration. And in evidence on Friday the 5th of May, she said there was, quote, a red sort of horizontal banding across the abdomen, just around the area of the umbilicus. So, ladies and gentlemen, if it's true, and Lucy Letby appears to be conceding that it is true that Child E did have a strange discoloration on his abdomen, why was Dr. Harkness being taken to task for saying it? Is it all to create in your minds the impression that in some ways the doctors are bad, that they're all ganging up on Lucy Letby? We invite you to conclude that that was all in effect a gratuitous attack on Dr. Harkness' integrity. It feeds into the general theme that Lucy Letby is being scapegoated for other people's incompetence and malpractice. And the point of the attack, we suggest, was to try to persuade you that in some way Dr. Harkness is prepared to make things up which implicate Lucy Letby in the most serious crime. But the problem with the attack is really he was saying in his way what she was saying in her way in interview. At 23:45, Child E was intubated as an emergency. The capnograph told Dr. Harkness that the tube was in the correct place, and a discoloration on Child E remained. In cross-examination, it was suggested to Dr. Harkness he should have intubated Child E before that time, and he was accused of incompetence for delaying the blood transfusion. But the truth, ladies and gentlemen, is that it was Lucy Letby harming Child E. And because she was the cause, and because she wasn't letting on what she had done, the doctors were never going to be able to save him. You will remember that Dr. C arrived at 0025 on the 4th of August, had a discussion with Dr. Harkness at the cot side, and then they moved from the cot side over to review the X-ray on the computer and to review the blood results. And even if you don't remember it, you know what happens next, don't you? They move away to a computer, either at the nurse's station or in nursery 1. And we know it's just around that little wall in nursery 1. And it was at that point that Child E deteriorated for the final time. What are the chances of that? It being precisely that moment. Child E collapsed for the final time at about 0025. CPR was started, drugs administered. Child E was given a blood transfusion at 0050. And as CPR was given, blood came from his nose and his mouth, the like of which Dr. Harkness had never, ever seen before. But after 10 minutes, spontaneous heart rate returned. You've heard that before, haven't you? In several cases. Not least, perhaps most dramatically, Child C. But unhappily, Child E didn't survive. You will remember that Dr. C advised against having a post-mortem, a decision or advice that she plainly substantially regretted, you may think, when she gave evidence. And she made the point in the witness box that with NEC, a child's observations deteriorate over a longer period of time than happened with child E, and that the normal X-rays that were taken of child E were not consistent with NEC. No one now, as far as we understand, seriously suggests that child E did have NEC. Dr. C also discounted stomach ulceration on the basis that if a child died from a natural blood loss, she'd have expected to see a more gradual deterioration, not these cliff edge type deteriorations that child E had. And if it was a gradual blood loss, as you would expect in the case of a stomach ulceration, the heart rate would go up and the blood pressure would go down. And that was not what was happening with child E. She, like Dr. Harkness, said she had never seen bleeding like this before in a small baby, and she said that other than child E's blood glucose, which had normalised in the lead up to the events of this shift, there was nothing in his observations to suggest that he was unwell in the sense of there being a cause for the bleeding and collapse. The expert evidence is a big help, ladies and gentlemen, to you, we suggest, in determining what happened. Importantly, and in the absence of a post-mortem examination, it excludes the possibility of child E having died from natural causes. Professor Kinsey excluded the possibility of there having been a congenital bleeding disorder, and you'll remember what she said about child F, I'm sure. The fact that he is child E's identical twin, the fact that she had looked at child F's blood results and could therefore exclude the possibility of there being a congenital bleeding disorder. Child E was bleeding from the throat, just like child C, like child G, and like child N. Child C was before child G, child N was later. Dr. Arthurs told us that the imaging didn't really help with what happened to child E, and went on to say that the absence of air in the great vessels didn't make a difference in determining the issue of air embolism, because images are not taken in the acute resuscitation period, and therefore you would not expect to see air. He also said that because very few babies die of air embolus, there isn't a great deal of imaging. No imaging records really to compare against. Dr. Evans was taken to task for having suggested in one of his earlier reports that perhaps the nasogastric tube was used to cause an injury to child E. The very thing that the mother of child E and F says Lucy Letby said to her on the night, ironically. He said that when he had seen a tube before the trial started, he'd rejected that himself as a theory. But that didn't stop him being criticised for having raised it in the first place. And the important point being made by Dr. Evans was that the bleeding was not the result of some natural or innocent phenomenon. In answer to questions about stress, Dr. Evans said it doesn't turn up out of the blue on day 5 or 6 of a child's life. And you will remember the evidence of Nurse B, who said that child E had been out during the day having skin-to-skin contact, and you'll find that in the nursing notes, with his mum for most of the day before he died. So that is not stressful for a little baby. Dr. Evans referred to the graphic description given by Dr. Harkness of flitting patches of discoloration, and told you that in his view that was clear evidence of air in the circulation. And if child E was caused a bleeding injury or had air in his circulation, we suggest there's only one person that can have been responsible. So far as child E's bleeding was concerned, Dr. Evans thought it had to be the result of trauma and pointed to the fact that neonatal units are full of bits of equipment, such as suction tubes or introducers, which might have been used. And he was cross-examined at some length about that, and it was suggested that there was no evidential basis for saying that an introducer had been used. Well, the evidential basis, ladies and gentlemen, is the result of whatever it was that happened that was not a natural event. We say something was used. This was no naturally occurring bleed. Many other children in this case had inexplicable bleeds somewhere in their throats or coming up from below the vocal cords. That's a phrase you're now very familiar with in this case. And as I say, the most obvious other cases, child N, child C, child G, and one I missed out from my earlier list, I think, child H as well. So you have a list there of 5 children of these 17 where this unusual sign was spotted. Dr. Bowen gave you a more important detail. She began by reminding us that child E was fed normally up until 2100 hours on August 3rd. In other words, the time that the mother of child E and F went down to the unit. Dr. Bowen described child E as being, quote, incredibly stable, and reminded us that on Dr. Harkness's first examination of child E, his abdomen was soft, non-tender, non-distended, with normal bowel sounds. And thereafter, the blood gas results had shown a decline. When she was referred to the feeding chart, the one I put up on the screen for you earlier, and the reference to the mucky aspirate, Dr. Bowen said it usually refers to a sort of brownish-green aspirate, so that stomach juices plus any milk that may have been in the stomach abdomen may be containing bile and flecks of blood. Altered blood goes brown. I guess that's why it's termed dirty. In the context, then she was asked, in the context of a baby who's been fed twice at 5 and 7 p.m, been fed 2 ml, and on each occasion there'd been a minimal aspirate, what view do you take of his record that at 9 p.m, before he'd been fed, there was a 16 ml aspirate? So this is the disconnect, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? At 5 and 7, we've got minimal aspirates. 9 p.m, 2100 hours, the critical time when the mother of child E and F is there, a 16 ml aspirate. What Dr. Bowen said was, it just struck me as being really odd and out of keeping with what had gone before. Clearly, you don't just take the volume of aspirate in isolation, you have to link it to his clinical condition, which had been fine. And he had shown no signs of any gastrointestinal disturbance. He had tolerated those feeds up to that point and had no aspirate at all. So I was just at a loss to explain where this 16 ml had come from, despite having had no aspirate before and having had nothing in his tummy for 2 hours. Child N vomits clear fluid, a child that wasn't being fed at all. Child G, a projectile vomit round the cot, on the floor, on the chair, and the feed, the full amount of the feed being aspirated. It's all the same thing, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? These are not isolated freak incidents. This is a pattern of behaviour, all down to Lucy Letby. This is where you are entitled to go beyond where the experts can go. They've told you, haven't they? We look at the cases in isolation. You don't have to do that. You can look at all the evidence. You can make findings of fact as to whether someone's lying or someone's telling the truth. And it all has a part to play in the decision, doesn't it? Dr. Bowen agreed with Dr. Evans that this was a case of air injected into child E's circulation together with some kind of injury to cause the bleeding. And she said this: hemorrhage of this magnitude in neonates is vanishingly rare. Vanishingly rare. Babies do sometimes have gastric erosion and ulceration, but it does not result in hemorrhages of this fashion. That's the way she put it. Insofar as intravenous air was concerned, Dr. Bowen's view was that the purple patches on the abdomen didn't fit with any explanation other than air embolus. It was put to Dr. Bowen that in addition to an increased risk of NEC, reverse end diastolic flow could put a baby at risk of, quote, other abdominal issues. That was how it was put in cross-examination. She said not that she knew of, and if any specific issues were to be suggested, then she would be able to answer. Well, no other specific issues were put, ladies and gentlemen. So yet again, we suggest this is an example, as we suggested at the beginning with Lucy Letby's defence statement, make general allegations, look at the specifics. It's no good saying, well, the care wasn't up to it. Well, you tell us where it came up short, and we'll answer. Dr. Bowen rejected a suggestion made in cross-examination that stress could have caused excess acid in the stomach, which in turn would have caused the bleeding. So the prosecution position is this, ladies and gentlemen. All child E's signs up to and including the start of the night shift on August 3rd were normal. He was making good progress. Yet within an hour of Lucy Letby taking over at 2000 hours, things had taken a turn for the worse. What are the chances of that? In itself, it doesn't prove, of course it doesn't prove that Lucy Letby sabotaged him. But when you look at it in the light of all the other cases, where the arrival of Lucy Letby coincides with the unexpected decline of a child, We say things go beyond the reach of innocent coincidence. Her encounter with the mother of child E and F gives you more than a big clue of what was really going on. At 2100 hours, child E was bleeding from his mouth, and when he died 3.5 hours later, he was bleeding profusely. When he first collapsed, he was exhibiting an odd skin discoloration that Dr. Harkness had only ever previously seen with child A. Child E's final collapse was at a time when Dr. C and Dr. Harkness were discussing what to do and were consulting child E's records to make their decision. What were the chances of that happening at precisely that moment? Again, taken in isolation, it would tell you nothing. But this is the point about circumstantial evidence, isn't it? You don't just look at one strand, you look at the combination. You look at how these telltale signs run across the cases. That's the power of the evidence. These rapid collapses and deaths always happened when Lucy Letby was in close proximity. There are no innocent reasons for child E's collapse and death, even looking at his case in isolation. But when you take it with his brother's case and look at their cases with the children L and M and the case of child K and with the others, the responsibility of Lucy Letby for what happened becomes even clearer.
Right, I'm back. Many thanks for sticking with me. KCC, welcome to you. Silver Fox, thanks for joining us. Who else have we got here? I haven't said hello to. Let's have a look here. Eva, pretty sure I said hello to you earlier. As I say, thank you very much for joining me this evening. In a short while, we'll start with the unreleased police interviews. I'll give you a read through of those. Let's just get rid of this banner here for a second. And yeah, if you could hit the like button, that'd be greatly appreciated, just to extend the visibility of the stream. And as always, if you do wish to support the channel, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. Right, let's get this on full screen. We'll do a few pages, and then I'll jump in and have a little chat with you in the chat. Sam, welcome to you. Thanks for joining us. Misbehave, thank you for joining us this evening. CFQ, welcome to you. Yeah, something else that I was going to say. I'll be doing private members-only streams, which will be starting from next week. So if you do become a member of the channel, you'll be invited to those private live streams where we will continue with these transcripts, potentially look at some of the other evidence and some of the transcripts I've got. I've got, as I say, probably about 40 or 50 days worth that I haven't actually covered on the channel. So if Lucy Letby is of particular interest, then naturally becoming a member would make sense. And those private live streams will be starting from next week. I'll still continue with the public ones, but there will be something for the members, just as that added incentive. Right, let's kick off then with the unreleased interviews concerning child E. So in court, it states the following. We move on to child E. We see hopefully in the top right-hand corner, redacted, we can see as far as child E was concerned, that the first interview took place on the 4th of July, 2018. Yes, that's correct. The interview began, as we can see from the summary, with introductions and caution. Yes. So we're going to continue, says the officer, the same format as previously, Lucy, and we're going to go on to child E. Lucy replies, okay. Okay, at 17:53 hours on the 29th of July 2015, child E was born to the parents of child E and F. At 23:40 hours on the 3rd of August 2015, he suddenly deteriorated, and at 01:40 hours on the 4th of August 2015, child E was pronounced deceased. I believe you had the chance to go through the notes. Lucy replies, yes. Other than those notes, do you remember your involvement with the care of child E? She replies, yes. Okay, do you want to tell us? If you want to tell us then in your own words, what do you remember, or what you do remember, please? She replies, so I remember the care of child E. From memory, I believe he'd been started on insulin earlier in the day. He was on an insulin infusion, but otherwise doing well and was starting to have enteral feeds. I remember after some of his feeds for me, I was getting large aspirates back from his NG tube. And when I consulted the doctor, we omitted, I think, a feed, and then his abdomen became distended, and he was reviewed by the doctors, and some medications were started, and his abdomen continued to distend, and became discoloured and ended up needing respiratory support and began bleeding, and then he needed resuscitation. The officer then says, "Is there anything else from your memory?" She replies, "And I remember caring for Childy once he had passed away." The officer then says, "Okay, so in terms of care given, when was the care given to Childy by you?" She replies, "So I took over on a night shift, and so it would have been from around 8 o'clock in the evening." The officer then says, "Is that the third into the fourth? So he died at 0140 on the 4th, the morning of the 4th?" She replies, "So this was the third, yeah. The third into the fourth." Lucy replies, "Yeah." Excuse me. The officer then says, "Sorry, go on. In terms of sort of handover, what did you understand to be his clinical position?" She replies, "From memory, that he was stable and there was nothing sort of untoward other than the fact he was on insulin." The officer then says, "Okay, in terms of caregiving, did anybody else have care for Childy overnight on that shift?" She replies, "Not that I recall, no." The officer says, "Okay." She replies, "It was just myself." "In respect of care, Lucy, where was Childy?" Lucy replies, "He was in nursery 1. "Okay. Do you recall any other babies in nursery 1 at the time on that shift? She replies, "Yes, I think his brother was in there as well, child F." "Were there any other members of staff there?" She replies, "When? At any point?" The officer says, "On that shift, on the night that you were caring for child E." She replies, "I know another nurse was there. I don't know at what point she was in the room, Belinda Simcock." The officer says, "Okay. Was she caring for child E's brother?" Lucy replies, "I don't remember." "So at what point do you remember Belinda being there?" She replies, I think it was when Belinda was there when I asked for the help because he had blood back from his NG tube. I think it was Belinda that I showed it to." The officer says, "Is that something you think or that you remember?" She replies, "I think." "Right, you've obviously mentioned her name and you obviously think that's the time. What makes you think it was her at the relevant time when the blood was there?" She replies, "Because I remember showing the blood to somebody and I think it was Belinda." The officer says, "Okay, and what did Belinda say to that?" She replies, "That we discard that and not feed him and then get the doctors to review him." The officer then says, "Okay, so you were his designated nurse, just to make that clear." She replies, "Yes." "Okay, so you then went on to say that he was doing well, having feeds, and you said something feeds, and I didn't quite catch it. The name of the type of feeds?" She replies, "I think he was starting feeds. I think so." "Okay, and how was he doing the feeds on that evening?" She replies, "I think from memory he had one feed that I gave him that was okay, and then on the next feed I was getting a large aspirate back from his NG tube." The officer says, "Okay, what about the sort of interventions? Did he have the up the nose tubes?" Lucy replies, "No." And it says, "Lucy explained that Childy was attached to a Philips monitor. He had a nasogastric tube in place and was self-ventilating in air." "Okay, so who puts the tube down?" She replies, "Nursing staff." "Did you do that with Childy?" She replies, "Not that I recall, no." "The feeding charts might show us that, mightn't they?" She replies, "Yes, I don't remember putting the tube in on Childy, so I think he would have had it in already." The officer then says, "So in terms of him doing well, what do you consider as doing well?" She replies, "That his observations were stable, that he was handling appropriately. I think from memory that his blood sugar levels were stable." Then the officer says, "Any concerns at all for child E at this point?" She replies, "No, not prior to that large aspirate, no." "What about his colour?" She replies, "I don't recall there being a problem with his colour at that point." "Okay, anything before the aspirate?" "So you then said there was a large aspirate." Lucy replies, "I think it was a bile aspirate." The officer says, "I don't know what that is." Lucy replies, "Bile is a product that's produced by the liver that we get from the bowel." Officer replies, "Okay. And usually it's a sign they're not digesting their feeds or there's potentially an infection. Bile isn't something we want to be getting back from the stomach." The officer replies, "What is that suggesting to you then, Lucy?" Lucy replies, "Then there's some sort of abdominal issue. Is it something you would escalate to a doctor, for example?" She replies, So usually from my perspective as a band 5, you would ask a senior member of nursing staff, so a band 6 or the nurse in charge, and they would advise, right? Is that what she is? Yes. And what was the advice? She replies, to discard that and omit the feed. Okay, I think from memory. Okay. Are there any circumstances where you would need to keep the aspirate, the bile type substances? She replies, you could keep it to show the doctors, and that's what we usually do, right? So we discard it from the baby in that we don't return. So we discard it from the baby in that we don't return it. Then the officer says, oh, by looks of things. But we usually keep the syringe to show a member of staff. Did you do that in this case? She replies, I don't remember. You then said that his abdomen was distended. What kind of time difference is there here? She replies, I'm not sure from memory, but I think maybe an hour, something like that. I don't think it was long. Okay. Had you gone away from Child E and come back in the hour, or were you caring for him throughout that period? She replies, I don't recall if I had another baby that I was caring for at that point, but I don't remember being with Child E the whole time. Usually for a baby that's self-ventilating, we wouldn't need to be, okay, at the cot side the whole time. Okay. So in terms of his abdomen being distended, could you describe that further for me? She replies, so I noticed that his abdomen became fuller and rounder, and then later on in the evening there was a discoloration area to part of his abdomen, like a purple discoloration. Okay, so this initial distended abdomen, what does that trigger within a neonatal nurse? She replies, so you'd be wanting to know why the abdomen's become distended. So usually we would go to the senior nurse or the medical team to come and review. Right, we'll just stop there for a second because I have to have this on full screen, so I can't keep up with the chat while I'm doing that. So bear with me. Jill Pendleton, thank you very much for becoming a member. Much appreciated. As I say, if you do wish to support the stream, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. All support is greatly appreciated. Music Tourette's, thank you for joining us this evening. All right, let's continue onwards. Oh, hang on a second. There we go. Let's have a look here. Okay, so what did you do in this case? She replies, I think I got the doctors to come and review him. Okay, do you know who that was? She replies, I think it was Dave Harkness. So this distended abdomen was about an hour after the aspirate. And when did you request? You'd have to check. I can't remember specific times, but I know I got blood back from his NG tube at some point as well. The officer then says, is that before or after Dr. Harkness attended and reviewed him? She replies, I'm not sure from memory. Okay. And you said that he was then reviewed? What was the outcome of the review? She replies, so we started I think he was reviewed twice, but after we started some medications on Child E, because I believe he had antibiotics specifically for the abdomen and also a drug called ranitidine. Okay. That can help with bleeding. And was there any other issues causing any concerns with Child E? She replies, not that I recall from memory at that time, no. Sorry, you then went on to say about the discoloured area. You've touched on that a little bit. Tell me a bit more about the discoloration. She replies, I noticed there was becoming a discoloration to his abdomen. I can't say exactly where, but there was becoming a patch of sort of purpleness on his abdomen. And what did that indicate to you? What did that cause you? Did that cause you concern with regards to Child E? She replies, it caused concern. Yeah. Why? Why is that a concern? She replies, because that's not something that is normal for a baby to have. So in terms of how big the patch was and its location, and you know how long it was there for, what can you tell me about that? She replies, I think from memory it was towards the right-hand side by his umbilicus, but I can't remember the extent or the size at the moment. We don't see many babies that have abdominal problems and things like that. The officer then says, what, the distension or the discoloration? She replies, the discoloration. Okay. What was that a sign of to you? She replies, there's an ongoing abdomen problem. Okay. Did anyone else witness that discoloration? She replies, I believe he was reviewed again by the doctors, yes. How long after the distension Did the discoloration appear? She replies, again, I can't be specific on times. The officer replies, okay, if you just talk generally, whether it was a few minutes or a few hours, can you clarify more than that? She replies, I would say minutes rather than hours. Okay. Were you still with Child E throughout these changes? She replies, I don't recall if I was there consistently or if I'd left at any point. I don't recall. I think from memory, he deteriorated and was desaturating and having apneas and needed some support with the neopuff. Okay. How long after that? How long after the discoloration was that requirement? She replies, again, I'm not sure. Can you say minutes as opposed to hours? I would say minutes, yes. Okay. So what action did you take at that point? She replies, I think we got the doctors to review him again. Okay. Think or you know? She replies, I think. You think. So when you say we, who's we? She replies, I think Belinda Simcock was with me. The officer then says, was anyone with you at the point of you realizing that he required respiratory support? She replies, not that I recall, no. And do bear with me, I've got my dog snoring under the table, so if you hear anyone snoring, it's not me falling asleep, all right? It's just my dog. Just keep that in mind. The officer then says, okay, how were you alerted to it? She replies, I don't remember. Then it says, Lucy Letby, in summary, could not remember how she became aware that Child E required respiratory support. She confirmed that he was connected to a monitor at the time. Okay, but you don't recall whether the monitor alerted you to the... She replies, no. To the desaturation? Okay. So at that point, you think you obviously responded, but Belinda was there, and you that... What the hell? So at that point, you think that you obviously responded, but Belinda was there, and you... Don't know what the hell is that supposed to be. Did you say you alerted the doctors? She replies, I think so, yes. And who responded to that? She replies, Dave Harkness. Do you know where he was when he was requested? She replies, I'm not sure where, but he wasn't on the unit. He was or he wasn't on the unit? She replies, wasn't. Okay. What's the process that you go through to alert him? She replies, I'm not sure because I'm not sure if I was the one who called him or if it was somebody else. The officer then says, right. And how long after you realised this deterioration was going on did he arrive? She replies, I can't be specific. I don't know. The officer then says, okay. Then you stated there was bleeding. Tell me about that. She replies, so I was getting blood back from the NG tube, and from memory, I'm not sure at what point that came that I first noticed that there was some blood coming from the NG tube. Okay. In how long after you recognizing his deterioration did you see the bleeding? She replies, I'm not sure if the bleeding came before that or after. The officer then says, while we're talking about bleeding then, can you describe the, what colour? What the colour of that was? I know it's a strange question to ask, but she replies, it was fresh blood. Excuse me. The officer then says, okay, and what was that suggesting to you then? She replies, that it's fresh, that it's a fresh bleed. It's an active bleed. It's not old blood. It's new blood. The officer then says, so what could be going on with Child E for this to happen? She replies that he's bleeding in his abdomen. The officer replies, okay. It says Lucy Letby was then asked some questions about her notes that she had in front of her, presumably. This is in court. They reply, yes. In quotes, and it's TAR 126 if anyone wants to refer to it, quote, at 2200, a large vomit of fresh blood, 14 mil fresh blood. Aspirate obtained with NG tube. Reg Harkness attended. Yes? She replies, okay. Was that the first time that you'd seen blood? She replies, I think so, yes. I'd have to check the actual feeding chart because that's where I would document the aspirates. The officers then read the relevant note in full, or that nursing note in full. Okay, had you seen any blood on Child E prior to that large vomit of fresh blood? She replies, no, not from my notes and my charts, no. The officer then says, but if you had, would you have put it in the notes? She replies, yes. Okay. When you saw that blood, was anyone there at that time with you? She replies, I think I showed it to Belinda. I'm not sure if she was there when I actually obtained it. It says, Lucy Letby couldn't remember whether Belinda Simcock was in the room with her when she first saw blood. The officer then says, what about any of the family? She replies, I don't recall. I know Mum visited at some point, but I'm not sure at which point the mum was there. I know she was sat with him for a period of time. Okay, I presume that if she had been there, she would have seen the blood herself then, would she? Lucy replies, yes. Okay. Do you remember whether or not the family saw blood? They're trying to get to this point, aren't they? With the mother being there and the mother's version of events, basically. So the officer then says, okay, do you remember whether or not the family saw blood? She replies, I don't remember that, no. Do you remember any conversation that you had with the family regarding the blood at all? She replies, not from memory, no. I'd have to check my notes. What about updating the family regarding the blood? She replies, I believe Mum was updated, yes. Who updated the family? She replies, I think myself and Reg Harkness. Do you remember when that happened then? She replies, I think it was after he'd been reviewed and we had started the medications. Okay, so Reg Harkness attended. What was his view of the blood? What was his feeling that was going on? She replies, I think he wanted us to start with the metronidazole and ranitidine, which is used to treat bowel conditions. The officer then says, did he have a view of that condition? Did he have a view of what the condition was for Child E? She replies, I think there was mention of it being necrotizing enterocolitis, and I think he ordered an abdominal x-ray as well. The officer then says, was there any issues with the NG tube at all? Was it correctly fitted? She replies, I don't recall there being any issues with it. In the correct position, was it? She replies, without an x-ray, the only way I'd know is checking that, well, when we documented here the length that it's been inserted, that's what you would check, okay, prior to the aspirate. And if the aspirate is an acidic aspirate, then it indicates that it's in the stomach. So in relation to the 14 ml of fresh blood which you put, is that a large quantity? She replies, yes. Okay. But what's the first quantity that you measured with your treatment of Child E that evening? She replies, of blood. I'd had the bile aspirate prior to that. Yes, but that was not blood? She replies, no. You described that bile aspirate as mucky. What did you mean by that? She replies, it's mucky, it's sort of dark, it's not pure bile, so bile is bright green, where mucky is sort of a bit darker. And that was prior to the 9 o'clock feed that you put in your notes, prior to the 9 o'clock feed, yeah? She replies, yes, and that's the feed that I have omitted. Then in summary, Lucy Letby was able to confirm that she had not fitted Child E's feeding tube. He had been due a feed at 2100 hours, but she had found the mucky aspirate before that, and it had been omitted as a result. She took her times from the clock on the nursery wall. Would there be at any time if you found blood on Child E that you wouldn't have told a doctor? She replies, no. No? I take it you know the sign of fresh blood being vomited. Was that a sign there was something serious going on? She replies, yes, I have not seen a baby vomit like that. I have not seen a baby have blood coming back like that before. The officer says, okay, would that be something that you would tell the family, or is it something that you've dismissed? Were you overly concerned at that point? She replies, I was concerned in that it was something that I hadn't seen before, but I don't recall the registrar being overly concerned. Right, okay. So it's not something that you would concern the parents with necessarily. She replies, I think it's something we would tell the parents probably. I'm not sure without looking at my notes in terms of them, what they were told. Okay. If you told the parents about that, if you had told the parents about that, would that have been in your notes? Would you have put that in your notes? She replies, yes, yes. You then go on to say, the abdomen was soft and non-distended, the SHO informed, and to omit feed. Who checked the abdomen? She replies, myself. Right. So you were happy at that point and you were not overly concerned? She replies, no, so I'm happy the abdomen was soft and non-distended, and then got the SHO to review him. The officer replies, okay, and this would have been after the 9 o'clock? After 9 o'clock, am I right in saying that? She replies, yes. Okay. And the SHO, who was the SHO? She replies, I don't remember. Right. Did they actually attend, or did they just give you advice regarding that? You've obviously got SHO informed to omit feed. She replies, I don't remember. I don't remember if they physically came or whether that was a telephone conversation. Right. But that doesn't remind you at all of who actually saw him or reviewed him over the phone? She replies, no. Okay. So after whoever it was that came, if they did come and prescribe this to help Child E's tummy settle because of the mucky, yes. Is that right? She replies, yes. And then you've then co-signed it. Did you administer that as his designated nurse? She replies, I don't recall. So was Child E showing any sort of signs or symptoms after the bile that was aspirated? She replies, not that I remember. No. No? So there was no real change in his handling or anything? She replies, no. And Lucy Letby was then asked about the distinction between the vomit and the aspirate. She replies, so a large vomit is a large amount that's come out of the mouth. In addition to the 14 ml of fresh blood aspirate? She replies, yes. Did he vomit prior to the aspirate? She replies, I'm not sure. If you know how you've written it here, one and then the other. She replies, oh, sorry, yes, he's vomited, and then I've got blood back from his tube. Okay, but are we clear that it didn't occur before 10 o'clock, though? You've got that at 2200 hours, large vomit. There is no blood loss, no, prior to that, no. That was the first time. She replies, yes. Then the officer returned to the notes. Okay, and then a further 13 ml of blood obtained by 11:2300 hours. Where was this obtained from? She replies, the NG tube. So at this point, there's a total of 27 ml of fresh blood in that period, in the period of an hour. Is that right? Together with the vomit of blood. Right, okay. So what was going through your mind at that time when another 13 ml of blood were taken? She replies, I was quite concerned. Lucy Letby could not remember how soon after this further quantity of blood that Child E deteriorated again. She thought Dr. Harkness was there at the time. She was asked, around this time, just prior to obviously his desaturation, what were your activities? She replies, what, for Child E? Generally. She replies, I don't remember. Okay, because of the previous blood, were you around Child E all the time? She replies, I don't remember. Okay. You then go on to say, oxygen given by neopuff, toes becoming white, and Child E called to touch. Like you say, Reg Harkness is present throughout, and then continues with the note, Child E began to decline. At 23:40 hours, he came bradycardic. I guess that's supposed to say he became bradycardic. A purple band of discoloration over the abdomen, perfusion poor, and a CRT in 3 seconds. This purple band, can you describe that to us? She replies, as I said before, I don't remember it specifically, but I think it was a purplish area around his umbilical area. Okay. Was that the same one that you'd previously described? She replies, yes. Okay. Because you obviously describe it as a band. Why? Why do you mean by a band? What do you mean by a band? She replies, a band. It was in sort of a line, horizontal or vertical. She replies, I would read band as horizontal from memory. And do you remember the width of that at all? She replies, no. And had you seen anything like that before? She replies, no, I don't think so. I'll stop there for a second. Ooh, right. And again, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's greatly appreciated. Just give me a second. I have a little sip of my, what have we got this evening? Captain Morgan's. We're slumming it tonight with a bit of Captain Morgan's and Coke. Right. Okay, on we go. Was this the right one? No, I don't think so. Okay. Right, bear with me, guys. I'm just going to let my dog out of the room. 2 seconds. All right, there we go. Okay. Okie dokie. Right, so the officers read the notes of Child E's unsuccessful resuscitation, and she was asked, do you remember what your role was in the resuscitation? She replies, I think I carried out chest compressions at one point, because I remember I was pressing down more blood came out of his mouth. So how were you feeling, Lucy, at that time? She replies, it wasn't nice to see. Do you remember what time the mother was present? So this is like the key point, isn't it? When the mother was actually there. Do you remember what time the mother was present? She replies, only from what I've written there, that was present at the start of the shift and then visiting again at 10 o'clock. Okay, do you remember when she left then? She replies, after the 10 o'clock visit, when... This is the note. Mummy was present at start of shift attending to cares. Visited again approximately 10 o'clock. So she's obviously there. What time would you have come on the shift in the morning, in the evening? Lucy replies, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Do you remember what time she left before she returned? She replies, no. No? Okay. Well, she did leave and she came back. You've put at 10 o'clock. She replies, yes. Did anything happen to Chaldie before she returned at 10 o'clock? I think in your notes that you got, she replied, when I look back, yeah, you've got this. Don't know what that's about. He had the mucky aspirate at 9 o'clock. The officer says, yeah, but no bleed at all before she returned at 10 o'clock. She replies, I think, well, there was at 10 o'clock, so, okay, not before 10 o'clock. We've got that she returned at 2200 hours, and I think it was 2200 hours when we had the large vomit, a large vomit of fresh blood, yeah? So prior to Mum coming at 10 o'clock. She replies, no. No? Do you remember how that conversation with Mum went regarding that bleed? She replies, I remember her being concerned. Okay, do you remember what she said to you? She replies, just that she would like us to contact her if there was any further decline or any update for her. She was resting upstairs at the time. Okay. Did she see the vomit as well? Because obviously the first one is at 2200, large vomit of fresh blood, and obviously aspirate obtained from the NG tube. Lucy replies, I would assume that she was there then. During the vomit and the aspirate, because it just, on this communication, it just says that she was aware that we'd obtained blood from his NG tube, not with reference to the vomit. She replies, no, so I'm not sure when he vomited then. I don't think he vomited prior to her coming. So you think he vomited after her coming? She replies, because I think I probably would have explained that we'd had a vomit and blood from his NG tube if he'd vomited. Okay. So what does that make you think about the first... Okay, so what does that make you think about the first lot of notes then? Where it's at 22, large vomit of fresh blood, and then the 14 mil fresh blood aspirate obtained. And that's on the first page though, at 2200. She replies that there's had a large vomit at 2200. Yes, but obviously you're saying that Mum returned at 2200. I've said approximately, so I don't, right? I've written approximately 2200. Okay, so I'm not sure. But obviously, this must be post-vomit because that's when you got the blood from the NG tube because that's what you told her. She replies, yes. I'm right in saying this, and then I'm a bit confused, yeah? So then there's some talking between the officers. I suppose the question is, how did she become aware? Is it something that you've told her or something she's witnessed? She replies, about the blood from his NG tube. The officer says, mm-hmm. She replies, I would read from this that I've told her because I've told her that we weren't starting that we were starting the medications to treat it. Okay. So she virtually saw it. The officer replies, so he must have vomited before then, mustn't he? She replies, I would assume so, yes. So would there be any reason why you wouldn't tell Mum over the vomit of blood? She replies, no, not that I remember. What's the conversation that you had with her? Can you recall? She replies, I'm not sure if it was myself that told her or somebody else. And I'm writing that she's been told because I was there when somebody else told her. I'm not sure. Right, okay. And then just reading this, I've put that Mum was updated by Reg Harkness. Officer replies, yeah, okay. Lucy says, so I think it was a joint discussion between myself and Reg Harkness to update Mum. How are you feeling after Chaldie's death? She replies, it was upsetting, Chaldie's. Whose decision was it for you to bathe Chaldie? Oh dear. She replies, the parents asked me to. Did you create a memory box for Chaldie at all? She replies, yes. On the instigation of who? She says, what do you mean? Who told me to? The officer replies, yeah. Was that something that you... She replies, It's something that we do for babies. I don't think anybody told me to do it. Right? So is it something you would always do? Is it something that the family would say, yeah, can you do that for me? She replies, no, we'd do it. Okay, as a matter of course. She replies, yes. And again, did you stay in touch with the family at all following Child E's death? She replies, only for the time that Child F remained on the unit, not afterwards, no. The officer then says, okay, and obviously another stressful day for you. How did you deal with it? How did you deal with it personally? She replies, I don't recall specifically. I know I found it very helpful to, oh God. I know I found it very helpful to have bathed him and had some time with him and dressing him. I found that quite a privilege that Mum and Dad wanted me to do that for them. Do you have any opinion as an experienced neonatal nurse as to what happened to Child E? She replies, no, I'm not medically trained and I don't know exactly what happened to him, but I feel there was obviously some sort of bleed from his abdomen. Right, okay. And obviously I did feel that the registrar wasn't overly concerned, and I don't know, I was a little bit concerned, but I felt reassured that he wasn't. Okay. And following deterioration, did you raise your concerns with anybody? She replies, I think I discussed it with Belinda. All right. And what was the outcome of that? She replies, I'm not sure. Okay. And what were the concerns that you expressed at that time to Belinda? She replies, I think I spoke to her about that I'd not seen a baby bleed in that way before. And her being more experienced, had she seen it and what would potentially cause that? And was it something that maybe the registrar could have acted on differently or something that we could have done differently? Right? And do you know what her answer was? She replies, no, I don't remember. Right, so we'll stop there for a second. We're on to the second police interview now. So we've had the first one for her first arrest, and we'll then move on to the second one very shortly. Right, as always, and again, thank you very much for joining me this evening. I'm just going to pop this banner on here for 2 seconds. And I'm going to use the restroom, and I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue with the second interview in a couple of moments. Right, I'm back. I am back. Let's just get rid of this banner for a second. There we go. Jude, welcome to you. I believe you actually donated via was it Give Me a Coffee, whatever it's called? Yeah, so thanks for that on the previous stream. Much appreciated. Lindsay H, welcome to you. Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Because obviously I'm reading this at literally the same time as I say in my other previous streams. I'm reading this the same time as you're hearing it for the first time. So when you hear stuff like, "Oh, it was a real privilege to have bathed him" and stuff like that, it's just it's just it's quite intense, isn't it? Really. Kitty, you are too kind. Thank you very much for the buy me coffee donation. That's honestly massively appreciated. Thanks so much for that. And as I say, if you do wish to support the channel, you can find out how to do that down in the video description box below. This channel is fully viewer supported and viewer funded, so any support is greatly appreciated, as you always know. Right then, as we continue, let's move on to the second arrest now. We've got about another 20 pages to go, I think. I think it's about 45 pages in length, this is. So I think what we'll do is I may conclude it at the end of the police interview, and then maybe tomorrow, I don't know how many people will be around tomorrow, but I may do a live stream tomorrow night going through the parents' evidence, or if not, I'll do it after Christmas, but one or the other. But, we'll see. We will see. Right, let's put this on the old full screen. Let's continue. Right, so now we're talking about the second arrest here in 2019. The second interview took place on the 11th of June 2019. The officers recapped on the previous interview concerning child E, followed with this question. In your notes, you stated that, quote, prior to the 9 o'clock feed, 60 ml of mucky, slightly bile-stained aspirate was obtained and discarded, abdomen soft and non-distended. SHO informed to omit feed. Do you recall that, Lucy? Which SHO you informed? She replies, no, I don't. Okay. Tell me what was discussed during that conversation. She replies, I can't remember whether it was a face-to-face conversation or a telephone conversation. Okay. I don't recall it specifically. I can't remember who it was with. Okay. Do you recall the content of that conversation? She replies, no, because I can't remember who it was with. A little sip of me drink, 2 seconds. Right. Dr. Chris Wood was the duty SHO on this day from 8:30 in the evening. He does not recall speaking to yourself as indicated in your notes. Do you recall if it was Chris Wood, Lucy? She replies, I don't recall who it was, no. And of course, she would say that, though, wouldn't she? If she didn't want it to be connected to anybody, she would say, I can't remember who I spoke to, so that they wouldn't be able to check with them. But obviously, they found out that Chris Wood was the SHO that evening, and he doesn't recall speaking to her, basically. She replies, I don't recall who it was, no. If he was the duty SHO on from 8:30 in the evening, is it likely it would have been him who you spoke to? She replies, yeah, him or his registrar. Yeah. And that doesn't have any contact until this. What the hell does that say? And doesn't have any contact until this is via the crash call system, right? And he says he arrives at around 0037. She replies, Reg Harkness that reviewed the baby. And then the officer says, say again, sorry? Lucy says, Reg Harkness reviewed the baby at some point. Okay, but in your notes, it says SHO informed, right? And that's what okay, I don't recall specifically speaking to an SHO, so I can't confirm that it was him or not him. He would have been the only one on duty. There's only one SHO on duty. Lucy replies, yeah. If it was the registrar that you informed Lucy, would you have written registrar in your notes and not SHO? She replies, yes, unless I've just done it as an oversight. Yeah, we love the old oversights. Because obviously using the word informed would suggest that you wrote this after you had spoken to them. She replies, yes. Do you agree with that? Yes. Okay. A statement's been obtained, Lucy, from the mother of child E and F. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting, isn't it? The mother of child E. She's given us an account of this night, the 3rd of August 2015, going into the 4th. She says, quote, I expressed some milk and took it to the neonatal ward at around 9 p.m. Tell me what you remember about the mother of child E and F arriving on the ward at around 9 o'clock, Lucy. She replies, I can't remember. I'd have to look at what I've documented. It then says, so Lucy Letby was provided with her note and asked, okay, so do you recall her arriving on the ward at 9 o'clock? She replies, no, not that specific time. No. Okay. Do you recall the mother of child E and F? Yes. And the mother of child E, do you recall if she was expressing milk? She replies, I don't remember. Is it common for mothers to express milk and bring yes? She goes on to say, when I arrived, child E was crying and really upset. He had blood coming out of his mouth. Do you recall that, Lucy? She replies, no. Tell me about the blood around child E's mouth at this time. She replies, I can't remember specifically what time I saw the blood or didn't see blood. I don't remember it. Okay, so from your notes in your previous interview, you commented that child E had a large vomit of fresh blood at around 10 o'clock on the 3rd of August. I'll give you a copy. If you just have a look at your notes there, Lucy. Yes. Can you see there the 10 o'clock that you've discussed in your first interview? She replies that the mum is visiting again at 10 o'clock. The officer replies, yes, yeah, yes. Can you see where you've documented that in your notes? She replies, yes, yeah. Do you recall the mother of child E and F visiting? Now you've had a chance to look at your notes. She replies, yes, I remember she came down. Okay, so I don't remember details of the visit. But when you say she came down, where did she come from, Lucy? She replies, the postnatal ward. Tell me what you remember of her coming to the neonatal ward then. A little sip of my drink, 2 seconds. Lucy replies, I know she came down. I think she sat with child E for a bit. And I think at some point she was updated by a registrar, maybe about child E. I don't remember. Okay. Just confirm the time that you put down there, Lucy, for us, that's happened. She replies, 2200 hours. Okay. Do you recall, Lucy, when the mother of child E and F attended the ward, that child E had blood on him? She replies, no, I don't remember. Do you have any recollection of the mother of child E and F arriving and seeing child E, her son, crying and being really upset? She replies, I can't remember what child E was like when she visited. Do you recall any conversation with the mother of child E and F about the blood around child E's mouth, Lucy? She replies, not from my memory now, no. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, you do get this answer from her occasionally. Not from my memory now, no. And that question was, do you recall any conversations with the mother of child E and F about blood around child E's mouth, Lucy? I mean, surely that's something that you would remember if you'd had that conversation. Yet she sort of leaves it a little bit up in the air. Not from my memory now, no. It's almost as if, well, if you can provide me some sort of note or some sort of proof that I have, then I might have to change my mind. I don't know, it just seems to be a bit of a strange answer. Maybe it's just me. Anyways, continue. Okay, so she goes on to say, I tried to use the containment technique, but it did not work. I was really alarmed and instinctively knew there was a problem. Lucy, the nurse on duty, told me not to worry. Do you recall that? She replies, no. She said that you said to her that it would be just... She said that you said to her it would just be his feeding tube irritating his throat. And the registrar would be along to see him soon. Do you agree you said that to her, Lucy? She replies, I don't remember saying that, no. She says you told her to go back upstairs. Oh no, did I just go to the next page? Hang on. Yeah. She says you told her to go back upstairs. Do you recall that? She replies, no. She says there that you told her it would be just his feeding tube irritating his throat. Explain to me what made you believe it was his feeding tube. She replies, I don't know. I don't know why I would say it was the feeding tube irritating his throat. That's not a normal reason for a baby to have blood in its mouth. I don't know why I would have said that. Okay. Had you contacted the registrar at this point, Lucy? She replies, I don't remember. Is it in your notes, Lucy? She replies, I've documented she was updated by Reg Harkness and contained child E, so I'm assuming that's around the time at 10 o'clock when she visited. She was referring to offering containment holding. The officer says, You're clear with the time there, Lucy, aren't you? She replies, I've documented 2200 hours, 10 o'clock. Yeah. Is there anything there in your notes about child E's feeding tube irritating him? She replies, no. Is there anything there, Lucy, in your note about the mother of child E and F arriving and child E crying and being really upset? She replies, no. And you have to ask yourselves, don't you? I mean, who in this situation is telling the truth? A mother who's just turned up there and has seen their son crying in a lot of discomfort with blood around their mouth, and they've been told that it could be the feeding tube. Why would someone imagine that someone's been told that? Like, why would someone either make that up or be completely wrong about that? It's such an intricate detail. Well, yes, the nurse told me that the feeding tube may have caused the bleeding. No one's just going to make that up, are they? And yet when that's actually brought up about, well, is it in your notes, Lucy? No. Is there anything in there, Lucy, in your note about the mother of child E and F arriving and child E crying and being really upset? No. Okay. The mother of child E and F says that you told her it was the feeding tube irritating his throat. Why did you tell her to go back upstairs if it was just an irritation? She replies, I don't think I told her definitively she needed to go up and go and leave the unit. We just often advise parents at night to go and get some rest. Okay. So I think it was said in that intent rather than saying she had to leave. Okay, at 9 o'clock. No, I've documented it at 10 o'clock. I don't know whether they're trying to catch her out there, but it's quite a little interesting way of putting that in there. Okay, 9 o'clock. No, I've documented it at 10 o'clock. So she's quite resolute, isn't she, about this 10 o'clock time period. It was explained to Lucy Letby that the mother of child E and F had obtained her mobile telephone records and insisted that her visit was 9 p.m. What time have you got that the mother of child E and F had attended? Lucy again replies, approximately 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. In fact, it's in 24 hours, so it says 2000 and then 22. Lucy replies, yes. Okay. Lucy then says, and that she was here present at the start of the shift attending to cares. The officer replies, okay. And I'm not sure how long she stayed for after attending to the cares. Is there any reason, Lucy, that what you've documented in your notes could be incorrect? Is there any reason, Lucy, that what you've documented in your notes could be incorrect? She replies, no. So did Mum come down again at 10 o'clock? I put that she visited at the start of the shift attending to cares. I haven't put when she left. The officer replies, okay. Is that something you would document in your notes if a baby has blood round its mouth? She replies, it would be documented somewhere, either on the fluid chart or in the notes. Lucy Letby was shown the telephone records and reminded of the reasons that the mother of child E and F said this took place at 9 p.m. She was asked, do you agree, Lucy, that paints a different picture to what's recorded in your notes? She replies, on the notes, yeah. And then she says, can I just have a look at the fluid chart? The officer replies, yeah, of course you can. Okay. Can I pause there? Was the fluid chart shown to Lucy Letby at that point? They're talking in court here. And then whoever was in court says, yes, I believe so. Okay, I'll ask the question again. Does that account differ from what is documented in your notes? She replies, yes, so I haven't written about any blood coming from child E's mouth in the notes. Okay. Lucy replies, I haven't documented on his chart either until 2100 hours. The officer says, can you explain that to me? She replies, I've made an error. I've put approximately 10 o'clock and it must have been before that. Then one officer asks the other, do you want to ask anything? And then the officer must say, if you have witnessed blood as the mother of child E and F describes, what would your action be? Lucy replies, to give suction to suck the blood out of the mouth. Who would you inform? Lucy replies, another member of staff or doctors. Would you look at that as a serious situation? She replies, it depends how much has come out. I don't know if this is a mucosary amount of blood or of blood that would, hang on a minute. It depends how much has come out. I don't know if this is a mucosary amount of blood that would look a lot that isn't a large amount. I don't recall. It upset the mother of child E and F, didn't it? Because she then goes on and calls her husband. She replies, yes, I can understand any amount of blood would be upsetting to a parent. Yeah, I'm really sorry for that. I'm really sorry that she feels that way. But if you saw lots of blood coming out of a baby's mouth, what would you do? What would be to suction that blood to clear the airway and then escalate it? Escalate it. So when you talk about escalation, what is that then, Lucy? She replies, to a band 6 or the nurse in charge. Okay. And ultimately the doctor? The doctor? She replies, yes. Okay. From the evidence that we have read out to you, Lucy, you were at child E's cot side when his mum, the mother of child E and F, walked in when he had blood around his mouth. Do you agree with that? She replies, from the mother of child E and F's recollection, yes. Do you agree, having spent time looking at them, that the time on your notes is incorrect? She replies, yes, I've written an approximation of 2200. The officer says, mm-hmm. Lucy then says, no, it seems that the event was before that, yes. Quote, aware that we've had blood and starting different medications. She was updated by Reg Harkness, so to me that reads that by the time he had been... She was updated by Reg Harkness, so to me that reads that by the time he had been onto the unit. I don't know what that means. By what time, sorry? Approximately 2200. Do we have the time that Reg Harkness came? That's what Lucy's saying. The officer replies, it says, Lucy Letby was informed that Dr. Harkness' note recorded 10 p.m. And she was asked, did you make any attempts to clean up the blood? Lucy replies, I don't remember, but I don't think I would have left him with blood around his mouth. The officer then says, why didn't you escalate it then, Lucy, like you've just said, that you would have done? She replies, I don't remember that. I don't know whether I did escalate it or not. I thought Belinda Simcock was involved at some point, but I don't know at what point I escalated or what I was escalating. I'm not sure when I called a registrar, though. Does it say I called him before that? Do we have a bleep time? It may have been that he attended, couldn't come straight away. The officer then says, your notes have the time on them, don't they? Your notes have given the time on them, Lucy. She replies, yes, the time that he attended the unit and reviewed him. Mm-hmm. Lucy then says, it may have been I contacted him prior to that. I've put, she came down again at approximately 2200, aware that we've obtained blood from his NG tube and was starting different medications. She was updated by Reg Harkness. So at that point, the registrar had been and started. So at that point, the registrar had been and started new medication. The officer replies, mm-hmm. I'm not sure at what time he was called. The officer then replies, why haven't you noted the bleeding in his notes then? She replies, I'm not sure. Was there nothing to support what the mother of child E and F is saying about the event at 9 o'clock? She replies, no. At 9 o'clock, I've documented that there was a 16mm mucky aspirate, not blood. The officer then says, there's a bit of a difference though, isn't there, Lucy, between a mucky aspirate and the blood around the mouth? She replies, yes. And that's the mucky aspirate, Lucy, that you have documented in your notes that the SHO informed, yeah? She replies, mm-hmm. You see, I don't remember contacting whether it was done by a telephone call, in which case it wouldn't have been documented. Mm-hmm. That he told me over the phone to omit the feed. The officer then says, but he says he doesn't recall speaking to yourself. She replies, no. Can you explain to me, Lucy, why the bleed which the mother of child E and F, child E's mum, witnessed was ignored? She says, as I say, I don't specifically remember that bleed, and I think if it had been anything of the volume she is stating, then it would have been escalated. I wouldn't have just left him bleeding. I can imagine that any amount of blood, however small, would be very concerning to a parent, yeah, whether that's a tiny amount or what they view to be a lot. Is this because you intentionally caused harm to child E, Lucy? She replies, no. Have I caused this bleed? The officer says, yes. No. Is that the mother of child E and F has walked in whilst you're attacking him? She replies, no. Is that why you told the mother of child E and F to go back upstairs, Lucy? I don't recall definitively telling her to go upstairs. I believe my advice was to go upstairs and get some rest, and we will contact you if there are any changes. Then it says, Lucy Letby was informed that Dr. Marna Reedy's view was that the cause of death was unascertained. And she replied, no, I believe at the time the consultant felt it was NEC that he had died from. The officer then says, what are your thoughts on that? She replies, well, that's what the consultant and the doctors at the time felt hang on a second. Well, that's what the consultant doctors at the time felt. Well, that's what the consultant and doctors at the time felt that it was. Babies with NEC do get discoloration of the bowel. The officer replies, and then Lucy says they can bleed as a result. The officer then says, is there any explanation you can give us, Lucy, as to why the bleed witnessed by the mother of child E and F was never recorded, and why you didn't take any immediate action to seek help from anyone? She replies, no. That part of the interview concluded there. So we've got one more to go. I think we've got about 7 pages left. Whew, right. Hickers, thank you very much. Greatly appreciated. Much appreciated. Well, you've got 14 hours to listen to tonight, so that should get you through the night with the 2 videos that have gone up this evening. So, yes, thank God I haven't got to do those chapters anymore. That was an absolute nightmare. Right. Okay, we've got 7 pages to go. Don't forget to hit the like button, everybody. That would be greatly appreciated. And as I say, tomorrow we may well go through the evidence given in court by the mother of child E and F and the father of child E and F. But like I say, it's 148 pages, and I think we'd be here till probably about 3 o'clock in the morning if we did that. Excuse me. So yeah, we'll probably cover that tomorrow, I would say, or if not tomorrow, then sometime after Christmas we'll definitely cover it. But yeah. We've definitely got that to cover. Thank you, Mr. or Mrs. CFQ. Much appreciated. Greatly appreciated. Right, let's get these 7 pages finished, and then let's hit the highway. Let's just move this a second. There we go. Thanks for that, Hickers. Much appreciated. All right, let's continue. Right, the 3rd interview took place on the 10th of November 2020, so this is Lucy Letby's 3rd arrest. It begins with the officers summarising events surrounding child E and what Lucy Letby had said on the last occasion she was interviewed. Then the question is asked, is there a reason why the mother of child E and F couldn't visit child E when she was being cleaned, Lucy? When he was being cleaned, Lucy? I wonder what that's about, when he was being cleaned, Lucy. Lucy replies, no, we might advise the parent not to be there, but would never ask, shut the door and say they can't come through. No. So if a parent wanted to be there at that time, you would allow that? She replies, I would personally, yeah. I don't see why the others wouldn't either. The officer then says, Dr. Harkness, he's provided a statement. He states that at 2200 hours, he was asked by you to review child E. Do you remember showing an aspirate to Dr. Harkness around that time? She replies, I remember the aspirate, yes, yeah. What's that aspirate that you showed to Dr. Harkness from child E, Lucy? She replies, yes. Tell me about the photograph you took of child F once child E had passed away. Do you remember? She replies, if I took any photographs of child F? Yes. I don't recall. I think I did separate photos, but they didn't want photos of them both together. So do you remember taking a photograph of child F with a teddy bear? Oh dear. She replies, I don't remember specific photographs, no. I know that I did. I think I did take some photographs of child E. The officers then turned to telecommunications. At 9:06 hours on the 4th, you've messaged Nurse A and said he was IUG, what the hell is that? IUGR and REDF plus Prem and Query Downs. So guess he was very high risk. It was just awful because he was bleeding from everywhere during resus. Got him back, but gas incompatible. Parents completely distraught. I feel numb. Do you remember that conversation? Lucy replies, yeah. Was that accurate? What I've just gone through there, Lucy, from what you recall? She replies, yes. Was he bleeding from everywhere? She replies, yes. Where exactly was he bleeding from? Can you remember? She replies, his nasogastric tube, his mouth, and I think he passed some rectally as well. Is that description that you've said in your message reflected anywhere in the clinical or nursing notes that you can recall? She replies, I'm not sure. But why was he high risk, Lucy? She replies, because he was a premature twin with other risk factors. What does gas incompatible mean? She replies that he has a blood gas, but it's not really compatible. There's not a lot we can do to reverse it, which means ultimately he will pass away. At 20:09 hours on the 4th, you've had a message conversation with Jen and said, he had massive hemorrhage. Could have happened to any baby. Do you recall that message? She replies, no. Was that right? It could have happened to any baby? She replies, yeah, I think any baby could have a hemorrhage, yeah. A massive hemorrhage in the way you've described it in that previous text? She replies, I would think so. You know, I'm not a doctor, but... You went on to say that it was an abdominal bleed. How did you know that, Lucy? She replies, because we were getting blood back from his NG tube, and I think he passed blood rectally, which would indicate that it was an abdominal issue. Okay, and that was the conclusion of that part of the interview. So that's it. Oh, God, that was, yeah, quite difficult, that one. In comparison to some of the others that we've covered, that was a bit more, yeah. I would imagine it'll probably be, it'll be quite a challenging piece to go through the parents' evidence in court. But I still feel that it's really important, that what they actually said in court, how they described what took place on that evening. It's important to hear from them. It's important to also hear, about this telephone call, the conversation between the mother and the father, what time that happened, all that sort of evidence. And also in that evidence that we've yet to go through, there's also the cross-examination by Benjamin Myers. So it's not just Nicholas Johnson, the prosecution, asking the parents questions. It's also, there's also a cross-examination in there by Lucy Letby's barrister as well. So you get both sides of the story, basically. Right then, everybody, there we go. If I don't see you before Christmas, then have a wonderful time. I hope you all have a lovely day. Thank you so much to those of you who have joined this evening and for all the support. It's always appreciated. And yes, I will either be back with you tomorrow night or it will be after Christmas, so the day after Boxing Day potentially. But I'll put a post out on the channel, so keep an eye on that. And if you could support the 2 videos that have gone up this evening, which is Lucy Letby's cross-examination in full. That would be greatly appreciated if you could watch those or just put those on in the background. Yeah, that'd be much appreciated. Share them. It's important that the facts of this case get out, particularly from what happened during the trial itself. So yeah, share the videos, like the videos, and continue to support. As always, thank you so much, and I will see you again in the next stream. Take care, everybody. Speak to you soon.